Welcome to Before After Omu. This is our 12th episode in which we talk in depth about the first two murders of Omu Shinrikyo, which happened in 1988. I am Atsushi Sakahara. I am a filmmaker based in Kyoto, Japan. I'm a survivor in the sarin gas attack back in 1995 in Tokyo.
And I'm Pearl Chan. I'm a film and birth worker based in Hong Kong.
Before we start today, I want to ask you to please rate and review our podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen. We work very hard on bringing you the truth about this terrible cult and Shoko Asahara. Please support us with a few minutes of your time. Thank you. As with the last few episodes, our research relies heavily on the work on Fumihiko Takayama's book, Birth of Asahara, Asahara Shoko no Tanjo, which has not been translated from Japanese.
Our last episode covered the miracles and scams of Omu Shinrikyo, and this episode we're looking at much of the same era of change, but at two specific cases: the murders of Majima Teruyuki in September 1988 and Taguchi Shuji in February 1989. I think it's important to start here, even though the group committed 80-odd murders, and even though we can't cover them all, I think the first two give us an idea of how and why murders happened. We're going to go into the details of these murders, so if violence and murder isn't for you, then come back in 2 weeks. I can't promise it won't also be gory, but this one will be for sure.
If you are a victim, you're a victim. You're not a journalist.
そうですね、来るべきものが来てるんじゃないでしょうか。
In September 1988, in the Mount Fuji dojo, the renunciates were doing a 100 days practice, which had extreme and ascetic rituals. So we don't know exactly, but these rituals were very taxing on the body, and one day during practice, 25-year-old Majima Teruyuki essentially had a mental breakdown. He started running around and climbed onto the podium, running and shouting around the facility. 3 executive members were alerted and held him down. Murai reported the incident to Asahara, who said, "Put cold water on his head and wake him up."
We know that 3 months after this event, Asahara announced much more severe punishments for breaking strict rules, such as staying out overnight or masturbation to completion. Punishments include demotion, delaying initiation by a full year, and being hung upside down and flushed with water to, apparently, flush out the bad karma. This idea of hanging someone upside down and flushing them with water was seen as a religious ritual and practice, and when Asahara said to put cold water on his head, this is likely what he meant. The idea being they could flush his odd behavior out with cold water.
So back to Teruyuki and the executives. According to an eyewitness, they moved Teruyuki to a women's bathroom inside the dojo, and there were 3 members who worked together to spray water at him from a hose. He was still uncontrollable. So they decided to hang him upside down by rope and lowered his head into cold water many times. After a while, he started to become inactive, not moving. Murai started to worry and asked for Hirata Masayuki, who was a doctor. The doctor examined the young man and said, "The pupils in his eye are open." And he stopped breathing.
The man was moved to a male bathroom and they tried more extreme forms of water torture in attempts to wake him up. They wanted to shock him awake, but his body never moved. Eventually, they started performing CPR on him, but he never came back, and they found themselves sitting with the first dead within the organization.
Right. So the idea is they could have reported it and chalked it up to an accident because no one had any intention to murder him. And even now, official reports call it heart failure and no one was charged on this case. But instead, they hid it because they were fighting for the religious organization status and didn't want any bad press. So when Murai asked Asahara what they should do, he told them, incinerate the body, we will keep this a secret. If any of you talk about this, that person will follow him into hell.
So, Atsushi, I know that I'm using the term murder, and you have been very clear that you think it's just like an accidental death, or you've been calling it the death of. So, let's talk about it. Like, I think it's murder because I think that Majumi could only have found himself in that situation because of Om. So I think it's murder. To me, it's murder.
Yeah. Yes. But I understand that it can be described as murder or it can be said as a murder. But just sitting in the court, I was very cautious about saying someone a criminal, right? So maybe if that's just a by mistake, maybe that's a death or maybe accident, right? So that's why I was a little careful. But yes, it is. As far as we know about what happened, it could be a murder. But just be careful. Maybe I'm too careful.
I mean, maybe manslaughter, but
right.
I think he did not just die on his own.
That's very correct. That's correct. Yes. Yes. From that point of view, yes, you're right. That could be murder. But just because I don't know, maybe I'm very accustomed to the information about this. The information trying to take a position. This is not a murder. This is it could be accident. Maybe I have a very strong influence from that. Maybe, but yeah, it is not easy to deny this is the murder.
So, Teruyuki's body was placed in a stainless steel drum and incinerated, but the incineration didn't go really as planned. The fire did not get hot enough, and large pieces of bone were left over, and Asahara had to break the pieces of bone apart one by a steel hammer before having it ground up. The ashes were put on the Goma podium for a little while before being spread in the Shojin Lake in Kamaku Ishiki village. I wanted to talk about, how because of the death, Om became even more afraid of losing control, and they, at the same time, they really wanted the religious status because, I think very clearly because of the tax incentives.
So I think as an organization, the OMU became driven crazy by this, because now they have a secret to hide, sort of to survive, right? But it's horrified that, it's horrified that it horrifies the member of the OMU because if this cult would kill you, that's the sense people have, right? That's very, very, how can I say, scary situation. And then, especially so, if the information about a murder or death is not leaked out and contained within the organization, right? I have never done that kind of thing, so I don't feel that I can do that. Meaning, I can contain that. I don't leak the information, right? I don't somehow believe in it, by myself. But that is happening in front of the people, right? I'm very, I don't know, maybe I'm too naive, in the sense that if you kill people, you should be found, right? Detected and then arrested. And but that is really happening in front of them, right? That is scary. That is very, very scary. And I think we will go, but more. But because of that, Asahara became very suspicious on spies and everything. And this is the beginning of what I call the upside down pyramid. Like they are in the organization with the order, but the pyramid is upside down. If you leave, if you try to leave, you're gonna be killed, and you cannot leave the organization. And then there is some organizational structure, vertical structure, and high-ranking followers, and then not high-ranking followers, and this moment is the beginning of that, I think. Harder for anyone to leave, and then also horrify, scare people about Asahara. That, these things, like later maybe we will talk, like, Joyu, right? Joyu.
Yeah.
Hiro. Because he has so much trauma toward or maybe mind control to the Asahara, right? So scary. He became so scared to them. Yeah. Yes.
After this event, they announced a lot of very strict rules that we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, such as not being able to stay outside of the organization overnight, or masturbation, or anything really. And so here's an example of someone who did actually stay outside one night, and this is Saito's story. So Saito is once again the guy whose story we told in episode 8. Atsushi?
Saito's family were plumbers and was therefore in charge of plumbing for a new facility. After the new rules were in effect, he went home to Yokohama to pick up materials for the job and stayed overnight and talked at length with an actual plumber on how to go about doing the job. The next day, he was called by Asahara, who was very angry, and he was soon demoted into being a regular follower. So the religion became a stricter and more serious place, a place of fear.
My heart goes up to Saito. He has such a hard time. And yeah, I'm really excited when we finally read that he left.
That's right.
I hope we get there.
Yeah. I don't know if we have that information, but he left, I think. We know he left.
Yeah,
right?
We'll find. Okay, so you highlighted here Majima and Friend. What is that about?
I don't know. Majima is a Majima, right? And
yeah, I heard Taguchi was his friend.
Really? I don't know.
I read.
They were the followers. If you find it, that's fine. They could be friends. They could be just a colleague, as a follower.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I found it in English papers, so
okay.
The English might use friend more liberally than the Japanese.
Okay. So, I
mean, like, are we friends?
Huh?
Or are we colleagues? Are we friends or are we colleagues?
I don't know. All I know is on Facebook we are friends anyway, so.
Okay.
All right. What should I say?
Okay.
Colleague.
So,
we are boss,
Majima had a friend / colleague named Taguchi Shuji.
Yeah.
Shuji?
Yeah, Shuji.
Taguchi Shuji. Shuji was 21 years old and was a renunciate who knew about the murder of Majima. Saito accounts being asked to go to headquarters in January of 1988, around the time of his demotion, and being asked by Murai to spy on Taguchi, who was in the electricity team in the same project Saito was doing the plumbing for. People had reported hearing Taguchi saying that he wanted to leave Ohm and that he wanted to kill Asahara for what he had done to Majima.
So I think being a friend makes sense, but now I understand. I was really wondering why just followers and then just he leaves, right? He has a very strong friendship, sense of friendship, and he want to.
I mean, I don't know. It's like Atsushi, like if somebody was murdered in front of you,
yeah, okay,
I would
Not
leave.
revenge.
I don't care. I could hate their guts.
Yeah, that's the way you should pursue. Yeah,
No?
that's rationally, because that's an insane community right now. Yeah, okay. So Asahara held a meeting with 7 executives and they talked at length about what to do. They took the threat to Asahara's life very seriously and said that Taguchi had to leave Omu if he was a threat to Asahara's life. But he could not leave Omu because he was threatening on telling the police what happened. At some point in this meeting, Murai said, if we let him leave, Taguchi will tell on us. If we force him to stay, Guru will be in danger. The only choice is to murder Taguchi. Scary.
As far as we can tell, this is the first time Poa is mentioned and is used in this way. And it's going to be used later on as well. So let's go into what that is. Poa is described as, quote, the practice of conscious dying, or a severance of a person with their body. And it is a Buddhist concept, though I was also reading about how it might not have originated from Buddhism. So it might be a pre-Buddhism concept that Buddhism sort of took on. So Asahara justified this murder by essentially claiming to release Taguchi from his physical body, which would, by releasing him, save him from committing the heinous crime of working against Om. So he framed the murder as helping the victim, and he'd used this framework to justify many other actions and murders throughout the years. So it's an important concept to remember. I mean, because, working against Om is a heinous and religious crime, basically anyone working against Om, for their own good is, there's a chance that that Poa is good for them, right? Like, you can see how easy it is to justify murder or any attack using this philosophy, right?
But I haven't told you that, people, the victim, or maybe I thought that we were failed to be poor, right? Actually not.
What do you mean?
I was sitting in the court when Joyu was, how do you say, testimony? Or giving, how do you say that, shared his experience with the court, right? Or trial.
Yeah, giving testimony.
Testimony, right? In his testimony, he said that the Saringas attack does not have intention to do a power. To do power, you need so much energy. You won't ever have enough energy to kill that many number of the people. And just because we are not good enough, so it is good to kill us for them. or for the society. That's the reason why they tried to kill us. Power
Yeah.
has at least some has some good sense, right? In their logic.
Yeah.
You don't want to be poor, never, right? But they have some very weird logic. But when they try to kill us in the subway, they didn't try to do the power. Yeah, I learned it sitting in the court. So 5 executives go to the dojo to meet with Taguchi with the orders from Asahara that if he does really want to leave, then they should do powa. He said, I don't like to see blood. Choke him in one stroke, burn him, and then make his bones into powder and fry it in the air. The 5 people involved were Kiyohide Hayakawa, one of the earliest and closest disciples of Shoko Asahara, Hideo Murai, Tomomitsu Niimi, who was the Home Affairs Minister, Toshiyasu Ouchi, who was heading New York branch and then moved to the Russia, and he was heading the Moscow branch. And Kazuaki Okazaki, after this murder, and he was involved in the murder of a anti-Ohm lawyer Sakamoto, who filed Ohm with about 300,000 yen and blackmailed Asahara for another 8.7 million yen after he left.
Good for him.
Yeah, he confessed in 1995 after the attack, and even though he pleaded guilty to all accounts and turned himself in, and was not even involved in the Saringas attack, he was hanged with the other men involved in this Sakamoto attorney murder. All those of the people who are involved in the Saringas attack.
Okay, so for the next part, I'm going to play the audio from the original file Atsushi sent me from his reading of the book.
And 5 of the high-ranking followers asked him if he wants to leave the Omu, and he says he wouldn't. He didn't change his mind. According to Kazuaki Okazaki's report of the interrogation, the murder took place in this way. First of all, Niimi Tomomitsu put a blindfolder onto Taguchi Shuji. Then they put a rope on his neck. Then they pull it up. Then he gave he pull up. He pull it up, and then he let Okazaki and Hayakawa, Kiyohide have the one end, and another end was held by the Niimi by himself. Oh no, not by himself. Niimi and Murai. So they pulled the ropes really hard. Then Okazaki, Hayakawa, Murai Hideo put his body down not to move, Then in the very final, Niimi held the head and the jaw with both hands, And then he tweaked the he caught the hand and he tweaked the neck, and they heard the sound like a the cracking sound, very dull, big cracking sound, and the bone was cracked, and his body stopped moving, and he falls to the front, and his body was burned or incinerated at in a steel drum used for the Goma stage, or put on the Goma stage. But this case, different from Majima Teruyuki, they spent 15 hours to burn meticulously. The bone, which came to be ash, was spread around on the land.
Om became a religion in the eyes of the tax office a month before Taguchi's murder, in January 1989. The anti-Om lawyer Sakamoto became much more active after the registration went through, but was murdered in November 1989 in the early morning, along with his family. Eventually, the group built a special-purpose microwave incinerator to get rid of bodies, including the bodies of Naoki Ochi, who also died during training, and Kariya Kiyoshi, whose sister had joined the cult and donated vast amounts of money. She had then either fled the cult or been brought home against her will by her brother. Kariya did not give up her location and was likely accidentally poisoned to death when they mixed up the quantities of a truth serum they prepared. Things got pretty bleak from here on out. At this point, we're researching a few topics, including the activism and murder of Sakamoto, the anti-Om lawyer, and the political party Asahara started in 1990, which ran 24 candidates in the general election in Japan. So, whichever finishes first will come your way. One is much more entertaining than the other. And then Atsushi, you want to sign us off?
Yes. Please listen and subscribe wherever you listen. Review and ratings helps other people find us. Thank you for listening. Reach out to us on Twitter at BeforeAfterOmo. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.